Hello. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to talk about getting addicted to brain chemicals. This is something that I wasn't aware of when I was early in sobriety. Um, and I want to talk about specifically like relationships, limerence, like projecting a fantasy onto other people, and then getting addicted to the brain chemicals of intimacy with another person when you don't really know them or you're completely denying the reality of the situation. And this is how I ended up in an abusive relationship for years. And breaking that cycle, breaking the intimacy cycle, being intimate with somebody that my nervous system didn't actually feel safe with is how I was able to actually leave that relationship. Because uh, like a lot of the research shows that somebody that's in that intermittent reinforcement pattern of an abusive relationship, it on average takes like 7 times to leave before you can actually leave. And for me now in relationships, I consider and I think about this situation. I've thought about this situation so much because I don't want to repeat this pattern and I don't want to bring this into any new relationships, but I do want to be self-aware and I do want to protect myself. And the best way that I can do that is to look inward and look at myself and look at my patterns and see where I went wrong and try to change that behavior going forward. And yeah. So this is just some stuff that I wish I knew when I was early in sobriety. Um, what had happened was I was in a relationship for almost 5 years. And I was in college. I was in my junior year of college. And we broke up in April of that year. And uh, I drank it. I still drank at that point. And when I drank, I pretty much always drank to blackout. Like I didn't, there was no like I was a binge drinker and there were even times where like periods of time where I would go a while without drinking, but when I did drink, it was always like in excess and it was always too, I used to say I want to forget who I am. And there was also just a huge social component of it where I had a really difficult time relating to other people and just being around other people sober in any capacity. And so even when I was going to a function where I knew there would be alcohol, I would take a couple of shots before I got there so that I would be at like a decent baseline to be able to socialize by the time I got there. But anyway, that year we had broken up. I really was kind of selfish and demanding in that relationship and I wanted to get married and I wanted to buy a house and stuff, and he wasn't there yet. He was like, I need to save more money. Like he was being very rational about it. And I'm an Aries, I'm a fire sign, and he was a Virgo. So he was being very Virgo about it. Like, no, we need to prepare more. But also we'd been together for almost 5 years, and I felt like, I want something else to be happening here. Anyway, we broke up. And I went on a pretty good bender, like a month long bender. Not every single day, but most days I was drinking and I was drinking a lot. And just ended up spiraling out of control. Um, I went to a wedding. This was in 2018, May 2018, and drank so much. It was my first time ever drinking moonshine. And I made the decision to drive, which poor choice. Don't do that. But I did it and ended up getting in an accident and crashing my car, going to jail, which I had been to jail before for alcohol, like underage drinking a lot, maybe at least 5 times. And then, but it had been years, like since I went to jail. So I was very much like, uh, I felt like I was better than that. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And then I was in jail for a couple of days because I was really, when I knew I was going to jail, I started mouthing off to the cops and stuff, and I was really being difficult to deal with. And I didn't know that the arresting officer is kind of, they get to decide how long you're in there or whether or not you can bond out or you sit the full 48 hours. So I sat the full 48 hours. And after that, I got out on a Monday, and then Tuesday I started going to AA because it was like, I realized that I couldn't keep drinking like that. And I also realized a very terrifying fact of the time that I couldn't quit drinking on my own. So I didn't know what else to do. So I started going to AA. And I got a sponsor pretty much right away. And I started working the steps. And I mean, I fully went like basically both feet into the cult of AA. And I'm not gonna like totally shit talk AA. It has its pros and it has its cons. It got me sober. Having that really structured guidance from my sponsor. However, I will say that that relationship was super codependent, and they say that like when you have a sponsor, your sponsor gives you suggestions. And I did everything she suggested, told me to do. But uh one of the things that she suggested, because not only did I have an addiction to alcohol, I also had like a love and a relationship addiction that I like codependency that I wasn't aware of. Like I just love attention. And I still even always say like my first addiction really was the feeling of being desired and the feeling of being wanted and the feeling of getting attention, particularly from romantic partners or from potential romantic partners. I've always been a huge flirt. And and I was like, I guess growing up, like kind of a wallflower. I felt like I was the second of five kids, and my mom was a single mom, and I always wanted more attention, and I didn't realize until I got hot in high school that wow, that feels really good. And I almost like didn't know what to do with it. But I think in a way for sure I got to dig into that feeling. Anyhow, she had taken note of this boy craziness, relationship craziness, and she had suggested that I be single for a year. And she had a caveat with that because she said most suggestions are all things that I've done myself, but this is something I've never done myself. So she didn't, I guess suggested it to me, but also didn't really know how to support me in that. But also we had gotten kind of in a codependent relationship where uh yeah, she did a lot of things for me that I didn't ask for, and eventually when that relationship ended, she was getting really pissed at me that I wasn't taking her suggestions anymore, and it seemed like just really unhealthy in the sense of if she couldn't control me, she was upset with me. If I wasn't doing what she wanted me to do, and that's not really how sponsorship is supposed to work. I digress. Um, so I had all of this kind of good inner work that I was a baseline inner work that I was doing with AA, but um I wasn't one thing that I was missing was like emotional regulation skills. And oh shit, I don't know, it just had a pop-up and I don't know what that was about. But anyway, I didn't understand the biology and the physiology of what was happening to me. Not like being being sober, like, and going through a complete lifestyle change of like I mean I started drinking when I was 15, and I definitely smoked weed every day. I just never had any like legal consequences with weed. but I always like had something to kind of make life easier for me to be existing in, you know. I had never had like any set period of time where I was just with myself and just feeling feelings and being able to process those. And it was completely before my big like Eastern philosophy, trauma recovery, healing, energy, movement era. It was completely before that. And so I was off alcohol, I was off weed, I was off sex, and just physical touch in general. I was living alone with my dogs and cats. And um, a man at AA caught my attention, and I thought he was really hot. And there definitely were red flags for me. Like, I thought he was really hot, and then when he started talking, he talked really slow. So I was like, I wonder if this guy's a little, you know, that's not right for me to do that. But I just kept on going. And there were so many things as I got to know him and in that relationship where I was probably 9 months sober when we got together. And this is the main point that I want to make for you guys is that when we got together and when I was getting to know him, even in the first times that we were hanging out as um like we might want to be in a romantic relationship, we're like pursuing some sort of intimacy here. Um, a girl called me and said, just so you know, like he's been in a relationship with this other woman, like for that is his best friend that he hangs with all the time. And I asked him about it, and he was like, no, no, like that's never happened, that it was never like that. But there were like multiple people that were concerned about that, and I believed him because I remember being in that room and taking that phone call and then coming back and being like, well, I just want to be with him. So I just pushed it to the side and ignored it. And there were many things like that where I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't like this, but I just pushed it to the side and ignored it. It was in a way like being dishonest with myself about what was really a good fit for me. But um the brain chemicals of bonding with somebody, of oxytocin, like you can become addicted to that. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that that's what was happening at the time. I think two things can be true. I did love him and I was interested in him, and I just wanted to see the best in him. But also, there's a physiologic component that I wasn't in control of that I didn't know that was going on. Um, but also, this is something that I did in that relationship was I became more in love with the fantasy of the relationship, like projecting what I wanted it to be and what I saw our future being. The fantasy of that was really what I was in love with. And I paid more attention to that than what was actually in front of me. I wasn't able to remain objective in the dating process because I just wanted what I wanted. And I just wanted it to be that so bad. And I had been alone for so long. And I didn't realize really the power of just having somebody pay attention to you and be interested in you, and the power of physical touch and the brain chemicals of like humans are humans are animals. Humans are social primates. Like we're meant to be in social groups. And I didn't realize how alone I had been for so long. It was very easy for me to just say like I was about to graduate college, and I like had this plan of going to vet school, and I totally like threw that out because I was like, this is what I want to do now. Like, I want to be with him and I want to get married and have a family and just have this person take care of me. I like completely, um, I guess in a way it was like me copying out for taking accountability and responsibility for my life. I was afraid of the newness and the differentness and the changes that were going to happen and afraid of who I was going to have to become to really make those dreams a reality, that it was just easier also to do the traditional, cis het timeline of go to college, graduate, get married, have kids, have your career. And all of these things were became a perfect storm for me to really fall into something that was not a healthy dynamic. And there were times in the beginning too where uh like I knew he lied to me about things, but I just accepted it as like um this is what it is to love somebody fully. Like you love all of the parts of them and you forgive them. And this is what love is. You have to compromise and sometimes you don't like it and then you just have to endure and get through it to have long-standing lasting love. And even like in within the first 4 or 5 months of us dating, like we had a conflict and he had threatened to take my handgun and unalive himself. And I was so afraid to the point where I sold my gun when I had gotten that like for protection as a girl living alone. And like I even got my concealed carry and everything. It was something that was really important to me. And I remember like crying and crying as I sold my gun. And I just thought he was mentally ill and he just needed love. He just needed somebody to see him and love him. And I think this is a trap that a lot of people fall into. And I didn't realize that I had tricked myself into staying in this relationship. I had tricked myself, and I also was addicted to the brain chemicals of um, oxytocin. And then coming from like living in a pattern of survival mode for a long time and not realizing that that's what that was. I know now that like what complex trauma is and cortisol, like you can get addicted to cortisol too, to the point where you're like creating chaos in your own life just to get that like hit of, wow, this feels normal now because it's, even though it's not right to do that, or it's not normal. Anyway, this is what I wanted to tell you guys today. Like, don't fall into the trap of that early sobriety. And this is why people will warn you all the time too of 13 stepping and um, staying single for a year in sobriety before you get with somebody. I don't know how much any of that helps. I think for me, like I really didn't have a great support system. I didn't um I'm not I didn't have a ton of close friends and I also like I didn't have a way of providing that oxytocin for myself to the point where like yeah, when I went off of it and then went back on it, it really was like a drug and it really was like something that um I didn't want to let go of. And in my own way, that was that was one of the ways that I fucked myself over into staying into a relationship that was really unhealthy and toxic for me was because uh I didn't know that that's what was happening. I didn't know that that was an element and that should have been something that I was working on. It's one thing to just go like cold turkey off of a drug. It's another thing to find healthy ways to relate to that and to add that into your life and to meet your own needs. And I still struggle. Um, I've been single I officially got divorced in May 2024, but we, I left him in December 2022. So like that's how long I've been alone. And I've had, I've dated, I've had meaningful connections here and there and have been able to deepen my relationship with other people and with myself in that way. But I've always, as far as I can remember, felt kind of on the outside and felt kind of like I don't know how to relate to other people. I don't know what's appropriate. Like literally Ricky Bobby, like what do I do with my hands? I don't know how to just do that. And I act weird, especially if I want somebody's approval or I want them to like me. And I don't always know that that's happening in the moment until I take time away with myself and reflect and process that. And yeah, you guys, I still struggle with it in my ability to relate to other people with no alcohol, in my ability to be intimate with other people without alcohol. It's been a struggle. It's been a, it's been a struggle for sure. And one thing that actually occurred to me recently as I incredible like intuitive hits that I've been getting recently in terms of like my own relationship to sexuality. Um, I had so much shame around sexuality that when I first was a teenager and when I first started having sex, like there was always alcohol involved. And it was not hard for me to connect with other people when I was drinking or when I was drunk. And I loved I really was able to access my sexuality that way. And so something that I'm working on now is being okay, like saying I have this desire, being okay with I'm very sensitive to rejection in sexual and intimate relationships with people. And so for a long time I've like been like really closed off and guarded and like not able to express that, like having a really difficult time expressing that or like initiating those really vulnerable interactions with people. It takes a lot to for me to be able to do that. And that's something I'm really interested in deepening, both in myself and in relationships with other people. And being able to do that without alcohol. Like it even occurred to me recently, like maybe I should start just drinking a little bit again so that I can have sex normally again because like that would be so cool. Because I like yeah, I don't have sex frequently. And it's maybe been like a year for me now. And that sucks. Like it sucks. I like feel like I'm starting to verge on hysteria. And I also like I don't take any psychiatric drugs. I'm not chemically dependent at all right now. I don't take any birth control. I really try to meet myself where I'm at in my menstrual cycle. I think there's something really interesting going on there that like the a woman's menstrual cycle is 28 days and the moon cycle is 28 days. I'm like starting to work with nature and where I'm at in my physicals and just like honoring the cycles of my body too. Um, what else was I going to say about that? Oh yeah, letting myself feel desire and letting myself feel sexual and being able to access that part of myself without alcohol, I think is kind of my next uh, the next thing that I'm going to be working on. But I wanted to share this as like a something I wish I knew that I didn't know, that I didn't have support for, and that nobody told me about. Like, hey, watch out for this. Because and don't get me wrong, like, there were good parts of my marriage. There were good things. Otherwise, like, it wouldn't be called intermittent reinforcement if it was always bad all the time. But it was really good sometimes, and it was really, really bad. And towards the end, it got really, really, really bad to the point where like I thought I was gonna die. But that's my story for today.